All right, everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Chris's Trains and Things. Today, we're diving into part 2 of what I think is going to be a 3-part series of me tearing out the yard for my layout, putting in a town, and then putting in an underground storage yard. So if you haven't already watched part 1, which was ripping out the yard and putting in a new tunnel portal, go check that one out. We'll link it right above here somewhere. But if you have already seen that one, continue on, watch this one. So I'm going to pretty much go through the process of how I built this town, from cutting the wood to measuring some things out to how I did my sidewalks to how I wired up the lighting for the Woodland Scenics buildings that I have. So we're going to dive into that. At the end of the video, I'm going to do an overview of the buildings that I have and answer a couple of things that might be on your mind. Post any questions you have in the comment section. I'll get back to you. I also plan on doing a live stream here soon that we can talk about this if you have questions or about my process or why I designed it the way that I did. So let's jump in. All right, folks, here's a view you don't get every day. So what I'm doing right now is basically getting the 33,000 foot view of this area where the town's gonna go. And you can kind of see some black marks. And what I'm doing is measuring the angles that I need to cut and the distances. And then on my notebook here, I'm just kind of sketching out the lengths and degrees of change for what I'm gonna be cutting out. I'm gonna cut out some masonite. This will be a 1/8 inch hardboard, really. I'm going to do the whole thing as a base. That'll get painted black where the road will be. And then what I'm going to do is I'll have the sidewalks cut in also where the buildings are going to go. So once I get that cut, it should fit perfectly over this whole area. We'll get that painted and screwed down. And then what I can do is I'll bring in and measure off where the buildings are going to go and sidewalks and so on. We'll go over top of that. So as I said, now I've got this 1/8 inch hardboard. I use this as fascia also. So I had a bunch left over here in my garage. And so I'm just going to measure out what basically the design that I've made. We're gonna cut that out and I'll probably just use a jigsaw and then clean up the edges. So that's the plan. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that. And the next thing we'll see will be dry fitting it on the layout. All right, so this is obviously just a dry fit right now. So I just set it in place. Measurements came out pretty well, actually. Pretty happy with myself. So what we're gonna do now, I did not have enough of this. So as you can see, I don't have enough. Like it should have angled out more to follow that track. And I didn't have enough, so I changed that angle. I didn't have enough to go back further in underneath the tunnel. Now it goes right up to the bridge abutment there, which isn't bad, but I kind of want that road to continue into another scene down there. I'm not quite sure what I want that to look like. So for now, this isn't bad by any means. What I can do is begin to mark off where I need to cut out the scenery so it kind of sits in more level. And then I can begin to mark off where the roads will go and where the buildings will go. And then from there, I can paint it and get this maybe in place. So I'm pretty happy with this so far. The other thing I have to do is the crossing as well. So I might have to cut some of the road out for where that track comes through. So I think what I need to do is really get that track plan finalized and get some of these tracks screwed down and kind of permanently in place, and then build the rest around that, because the trickiest part is getting that track where it needs to go. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll figure out if I need to cut maybe a notch into that as opposed to having the track just lay over top. It'll be more of a level crossing, which wouldn't be a bad thing. So we'll see where we go. What I'm doing is I'm just sketching out. I've messed some areas up, but that's okay. We're basically drawing out my roads, and they're about 5.5 to 6 inches in length. So this is where it's going to cross over. So we're looking from that tunnel portal out to where like people would be standing. Road's going to come out and have a 90-degree left turn. We'll have the Davenport building and Sully's Tavern here. We've got an alleyway between the buildings and a little area in the back that we can put some stuff. You won't really see it. An open area here, because this is where that mountain kind of comes out. So my thought is we do some parking here, and then, we could do a newspaper stand, hot dogs, vendor, things like that. It continues down. So I'm just measuring out buildings. I don't have all these yet, but I'm just kind of planning for them. So we got Dugan's paint. Now this is where it angles out more And what I'm doing basically is I cut a 2-inch section of scrap masonite. That's going to be my sidewalk. So they're all consistent. And then this is a scrap alleyway. So I can put that between buildings. So I have an alley between each building, because on the side of those Woodland Scenics buildings, there's, you know, some writing and there's some details that you want to be able to see. You don't want to just butt them up against one another. So that's why I've created the alleyway there. It's just going to angle out. And as it does, we might be able to do some more stuff in the back. I'm just going to plan for it to go out and plan for some buildings. And then I've got to add some more masonite to extend that out down the road. Got everything kind of mapped out, and then what I did was I spray painted where the roads would go, and then I've just brought it down here and laid it in, and it's looking pretty good. So I'm working on, I've got Davenport and Sully's are the 2 buildings that I have now. So I've cut out a base for those. I also have the sidewalks upstairs, so I have to measure and get those cut and things like that. But what we'll do is we'll probably screw this down under where the buildings are, and where the sidewalks will go, so you don't see the screws. Maybe put some manhole covers and things like that. And this is a little high here, so I might have to get creative with how that looks. And what we could do is have some ground cover come right up to that, and I could put a screw in the corner, have it just be ground cover. So we can figure that out. And obviously we're gonna have to expand that in time, but we're happy to have this in now. I've also got the track in. I put a feeder wire in here for power. So right now that's connected here. I might cut the power there, so that way I can have a train sitting in here and off. What I'll do is I'll take this is my old yard switch, power switch, so I can just rewire it right into that, and we'll be ready to go, which will be great. I just have to put a fuse in, because that's going to power the whole bottom loop probably. So I want to make sure I put a fuse in for that, or a circuit breaker rather. Back out here with the sidewalk, I'm taking my 2-inch sidewalk piece now, so I can make sure I cut these 2 inches wide. But what I'm also doing now is cutting my expansion joints in. So I'm just kind of placing this down and then running my hobby knife over it twice. And then I'll kind of dig them in a little bit. Then what I'll do is I'll cut in some stress fractures. And then I'll probably paint it again, sand the side to kind of give it a curb. What I should probably also do is actually give it a curb. So come by about half a centimeter or so in, 1/4 of an inch or so, cut a straight line across like you see it curving, and then we'll sand that down as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and do some of these detail parts now. It's gonna be a lot easier to do it now than do it when it's on the table. Here are our sidewalks in the alleyway. I've got the expansion joints cut. I've got some stress fractures. We're gonna give it the old black wash treatment. So I've got just a little bit of black, I just have black airbrush paint in here and some brown acrylic paint mixed together with some water. And we're gonna paint it on and then dab it up with a rag and just make that really grimy looking. It doesn't, maybe not as grimy as our station platform, but you know, make them look a little bit more unique. Each section should be different, you know, just like you'd see as you walk down the street. So I'm gonna do that and we'll look at the end product here in a minute. So that's what it looks like when that paint's on there. And what I'm gonna do is just take a rag, I've got an old t-shirt here, and just begin to blot it up. You know, you can clean it really well. And you can see what happens is that grime's gonna sit into those cuts that we made, which is gonna look really nice. So if you look at what it looked like before, there's one that's I didn't paint. So you can see it just adds that layer of grime. It just makes it look a little bit more realistic. In the shop now, you know, I got this Woodland Scenics building today. And so what I did was I built a base for it out of the 1/2 inch mason, or the 1/8 inch hardboard or masonite. And so what I've done is I've spray painted that the same as the sidewalk. And I'm just gonna put it on here. I'm gonna mark it so I have the exact dimensions, and that's what it'll sit on the layout. I'll drill a hole through this and a hole through the layout for the wires that are in underneath, so we can wire this up eventually. Now, when you get these Woodland Scenics buildings, and I was talking with Ted over at Cool Trains, and that's who I ordered these through him, and he said, you know, just check it out and make sure that everything's okay. And you know, sure enough, it's not. There was a broken sign, and he showed this to me. This sign, he showed it to me before I got there. He had looked at it and said, hey man, this is broken. You can send it back or take it as it is. So I figured I'd take it. I can glue this pretty easily. And then this just goes right into there like that. So I'm going to glue that up now, and then we're going to get this fitted onto the layout. Looking around the building, this corner here is coming apart, so I'm going to glue that too with some CA and probably hit it with a little zap here and tighten that up as well. Then we'll go put it on the layout. So we've got the first two buildings purchased. So I'm working on the sidewalks for just the first two, and then I've got it going over there, and I'm not going to bond all of them down, but you can see I've got them cut out, and then kind of had to work on these joints here so they all kind of fit together. And what we'll do is wood glue this down onto that base. Once we'll put the two buildings on, make sure everything's in the right spot, and then glue them down so that the sidewalks aren't going to go anywhere at that point. And then I will not glue this one down. Probably leave these two unglued. That way I can, when those buildings come in, if I need to make some adjustments, I can easily do that without messing anything up. So this is looking good. Next I'm going to do is I've got another piece of masonite for the road back there. We're going to lay that on top, and then it'll come all the way down and meet with this section of road here. And we'll put that on. I'll screw that down because it's kind of hidden. And yeah, moving right along. What we've done here is switched a couple things. I ended up acquiring this Boyd's Billiards building from the Forum. Someone was selling this in two other buildings. I ended up picking up this one and the Cobbler building from a sale on there. And because of the way this is set up, it's actually perfect for this location. So I've got the Davenport building here on the corner, and then this building here before this open area, which is kind of like a mini plaza, if you will. And so by having the Annie's ice cream stand right here, it's actually perfect for this open area. And so I moved Sully's Tavern down to the other end. And so what I've done is I fit in this section here of sidewalk. So that's just put right in place there. And this is glued down because this is the location that I want it to be in. The sidewalks, I haven't glued any of the sidewalks down yet, so any minor adjustments I can still make. But I basically just fit that in to here, and then I've left this section open. And the reason that this section here is open is because I'm probably going to do some sort of flower bed or something here, and you'll see more about that later on. So this just comes right up to this area here, and obviously there's a big drop off. So we'll need to put some sort of either fencing or bring this base up and put maybe some static grass in here, maybe a dog on a leash or something. In the back, I've got some sidewalk that I can just bring over. That's going to get cut and put in the right spot to fill in that back area. There's like a back alleyway where there's some dumpsters and things. You're not really going to see that, but it's just going to close it off nicely. So this building was nice to acquire and be able to put this area in here. Going to get some picnic tables out here as well. It's going to finish that scene off. And then by having this open here, another aspect of why I designed this with this parking area here is it allows a visual back so you can see the trains go down through that tunnel portal, because that's the reason we're here, right? So it's just another way to get some really nice shots of having a camera here as the train goes by. Back out here at the shop, working on some foundations for some more buildings. I ended up getting a couple more from the Forum than I had expected. So making a new foundation for Sully's Tavern. Here's the theater I picked up today, and then Dugan's paint, which I also picked up today over at Cool Trains. So I just basically cut it out based on the dimensions on the Woodland Scenic's website. And then what we'll do is we'll put the building on top. And if we have to cut any more out, we'll just mark it once the building's on it. There's some other added details and things like that. Like there might be a trash dumpster that we have to cut out and things like that. At the theater, there's box office cutouts that kind of recess into the building, which is why I've put some sidewalk area in there at the front. And so we'll put these on the layout. Once we get them in the right spot, we're going to drill a hole straight through these, through the top of the table, so we can fish the wires down through, and then we'll get the buildings in place. So what we need to do here is figure out this area here, and sort of like we did over by the ice cream shop on the other side, what we're going to do is we're going to put concrete in here. This space here, I haven't quite decided yet what I want to do. I could put concrete in. I could put a flower bed in, which I'm thinking of doing. I purchased some of these JTT hydrangeas, and I thought they would be nice with some other flowers I have from JTT products, in kind of a flower bed area here, and maybe even a flagpole eventually. So I've got a bigger piece here, so it actually fits. I haven't glued the sidewalk down, and that was purposeful. right in there. Just like that. And then from there, I can mark where that needs to get cut. So we're test fitting this in place. It looks good. What we're gonna do is I scribe the line here. We're gonna cut this little bit of excess off so it's more symmetrical, so it doesn't completely disrupt my OCD. Then I'm gonna go upstairs with it. I'll sand the edges, cut the expansion joints in, just like I did with the sidewalk, paint it, black wash it so it matches as close as possible. We'll come down and glue that in place, and then we can glue these sidewalks in place, and then this can be open for now, and we can come up with an idea later on. Typically when I'm doing projects like this, I'll just let something be bare for a while until I come up with an idea of what I want to do. So that can sit there until I come up with a final plan. I'll probably end up doing the flower bed idea. I think that'll look nice and just kind of set the scene off and complete it a little bit. Pretty good. So let me pull you up here so you can get a better view. So that fits in there. Now, again, we've got some gaps. That's okay. I can put some weeds in there, some little cinders. That'll be the same color as the concrete, so it just looks like broken concrete, but that looks pretty good. So if we come back now, we've got that center area for a little flower bed right in front of that mountain hillside. Gives you a nice visual back as trains are going into that tunnel portal. So that's looking pretty good. Some little detailing pieces here. I have added just some ADA strips there on the sidewalks with some spray paint. Might not be of era when Gone with the Wind was playing in the movie theater, but I think it's a cool little scenic element to just add to this whole scene. So coming together well here. Got a lot more work to do, especially with the finer details. And I've also have some of these. I got 2 of these that we're going to add in as well, and then we have to do the lighting, and we'll talk about and show all of that work through this process as well. Another thing I decided to do was bring over my Woodland Scenics building, my Morrison's Door Factory rather, and add that to this siding. So we knew that this was over on the other side of my layout. It's actually, the layout was designed with this building in mind to be over on that other spot, but it fits really nicely in here, and I have it wired up now. So if I hit my switch, the red dock lights come on there, and you can't see the lights on the other side, but they're there. You know, and this building would look nice here on this siding, and it does something with that. And with the angled road here, it actually lines right up with those doors. So I can actually continue Main Street right on through. I'm gonna have another piece of blacktop over there I've got to bring back down and put in place, and we can finish off the road and town over there. But this looks pretty cool. It's really tight to not fitting, but I think it looks okay. Tell me what your thoughts are in the comments. We can always move it later on, but I think it's looking pretty good right now. So now you get an under layout view. We're doing the lighting for our Woodland Scenics buildings. And so what we're using for this is the Just Plug system that the Woodland Scenics buildings come pre-wired for. So what I have here for this setup is I have the light hub, I have an expansion hub, and then over here I have another light hub. So let me explain how I have this set up. If you have just 4 buildings that need lights, you can just get away with 1 light hub and be good. Because I've got so many different buildings and so many different lights, I've got 2 light hubs, and they all connect through this expansion hub. So what I have, the way this works, the expansion hub becomes the main connector to your power source. So power comes in, and then from there, I've got a control switch that I have outside on the fascia that I can turn the lights on and off with. And then these are jumper wires that connect to the light hubs. So right now I only have 1 plugged in. And then what I'll do is I'll take a jump wire and go from this hub to this light hub, which will then power this hub itself. And they'll all be connected or controlled off that same connection port. So that is how those work. Now, when you do that, the control for the light hub has this little looped wire in it. You keep that in there. Otherwise, it's going to be powered all the time, I believe, or won't come on. So what I'm going to do is put a little wire that's going to jump us from this to the power in on this hub, and then we'll go up and test it out and see if all the buildings light up. Moment of truth. So down here, I've got my switch that powers into that expansion hub. So let's give it the old college try. There we go. So we've got all the buildings lit up. Let me dim the lights a little bit so you get a better view. Looking good. At this point, we're beginning to glue up the sidewalks. So we've got a couple of those sidewalks glued up at this point. We're just gonna work our way down and make sure we've got everything where we want it. I'm also taking some scrap pieces here that I just cut some loose expansion joints in, not really sidewalk. This is gonna go behind the buildings. So when you're standing here, you can kind of see in those shadows back in there. We need to fill those spaces in a little bit. So if we climb up on top here, you can get a better view of the back. It's just kind of nothing happening. And there's great details on these Woodland Scenics buildings, but no one's gonna see the back of these, but I would like to just close it off a little bit, and then we'll ground cover and things like that at the base of the mountain. So what I've got, slide on over here, is I just went out and I just chopped some of these up. So like this one will fit right in this space here. And then wherever it doesn't cover, we'll just ground cover that with, you know, dirt and grass and things like that. So we're moving right along to close this space off. I have the street lights. I'm trying to wait until I've got a lot of work done up here because I feel like I'm going to easily snap and break those just by walking around if I bump it lightly. So trying to put that off for now. But the town here is really starting to come together. So we're getting close to the end, I think. Today I took Sculpt-A-Mold, really watered it down, like diluted it a lot more than typical. And then I started to fill in where that brown is. You can see where there's just a little bit of an elevation difference between the hardboard road and the surface of the table where the scenery was beforehand. And there was some that was cut out. So I filled that in with the Sculpt-A-Mold. I've done the same thing on this side. And then I painted it brown, then I've added some ground cover as well. And then I've added a little bit of ballast there on that track. So you can kind of see how that kind of comes around. This has got the brown paint. And then in the joint of where the two boards come together, as you can see there, what I've done is I've put the Sculpt-A-Mold into that crack to sort of fill that in. I also put a piece of plywood underneath that. So when you step on it, if I have to get up on the table, it doesn't go down. But what that'll do is it kind of fills that crack in, and then I'm coming over it with a wet cloth to clean up the Sculpt-A-Mold. You can see some white still there, and it'll continue to get cleaned up over time. And then what we'll do is we'll paint that probably a darker black, so it looks like where they would put a tar strip where two pieces of road, or when they pave roadways, you know, they can do like a 10-foot section at a time, and then they do the next 10-foot section, they might tar that seam. So that's what that will look like. That back area over there, I just haven't cleaned it up yet. Same idea though, that'll get cleaned up as well. So where it's painted brown, I'm going to be coming over with some ground cover a while, and then we'll do some reballasting of this track eventually. Over here in the middle, I've added some mulch, which is just Brennan's natural ground cover. This is the coarse undergrowth or earth undergrowth. I filled into that area there, and then I've done some big ground foam in the back area. We'll continue to put more trees. So I'm going to put some bushes and things like that in there. I've added a picnic table and a man eating, and I've also added some of these newspaper stands throughout. The next piece of the puzzle is going to be to put the street lights on. So I've opened these up, and what you get is 2 street lights and some wire, and then you've got the splitter piece here. I've got a bunch of these, and what we can do is wire both of them into one of these and then plug it into the light hub. I'm going to plan to do that with a lot of these lights because I don't have any space left on my light hubs. So in the box for these, pull this out. You don't really get any directions, but you do when you open this up like this. It tells you exactly what to do. So it's nice you don't get any loose leaf paper. So we're going to mark where we want it. Use an 1/8" drill bit to drill straight down. Put a little CA glue in there or some wood glue to hold it in place. And we'll fish the wires down through and stick it in place and then get it all wired up. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for I've got 6 of them. I'm gonna mark out where I want them. I'm thinking the corner maybe, but I've got the Davenport building kind of sticks out. So maybe one here, one on each angled section, one between the paint store and the theater, and then one on that far corner as well. So let's, I'll mark them off and put them in, and then we'll see them when they're done. Our streetlights are installed. Now, all but 2 of them are working. These 2 here, obviously, as you can see, are not lit up. And whatever I was doing, Dugan's paint shop is no longer lighting up. So I've got some wiring work to do, but we can deal with that later on. These 2 were on an older wiring setup than the other ones that are working. So we'll figure that out. They just look like really thin, cheaper wires. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Try to wire these 2 and the building up together, and maybe that's just too many into one slot. So I might have to splice them a little bit differently, get creative with it. But that's where we're at. I also closed in the scenery here and added some more ballast to kind of finish this off, and then did some testing on some striping. Not very pleased with that, so I stopped it there, and we'll figure out some striping for the main road later on. Added a few more scenic details here before we finish up. So I've added the hydrangeas and some daisies. I have an old apple tree that I put in there for now. I would like to get I'm going to use a super tree and maybe put some pink flock on it so it looks like a cherry tree. I've also added a newspaper stand over on this side as well. We've added ground cover to the back and some sidewalk areas in the back as well. So when we look around from the side, you can look back there. There's some weights on there as they're continuing to be glued up. And then we've got Deuce's bike shop in the back, and our friend, the T-Rex, chasing our Jurassic Park Jeep. Gotta have a little bit of fun with this, right? We're done, finally. So this has been a few weeks process, and right before this, I was wiring up some street lights, and I've got most of them wired up. 2 of them are not cooperating right now, so I'll deal with that later. But they're in. I think everything looks really good. You can see some, we'll do some pass-bys here. I have acquired some cars as well. I stopped at the hobby shop this morning, and I picked up an old convertible there, and then that you saw, or you'll see, and then they had the Jurassic Park Jeep. I couldn't pass that up. My kids have the Power Wheels version of that, and I'm a huge Jurassic Park fan, so I had to throw that in the town also. So what does this town have? What is made up here? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Woodland Scenics buildings on this layout. I could not have done this without the help of my friend Ted, who owns Cool Trains and Hobbies up in Sully, Lancaster. I went in there and he didn't have the buildings I was looking for. He said he could order them for me. So I emailed him during the week, said, here's 2 buildings that I would like. And they were literally there a couple days later. He'd email me, said, hey, the building's ready to be picked up. I could go pick them up on Saturday morning. And he was understanding that I couldn't do this all at one time. So I'd chip away. And I did plan on making this a longer process, and I did it a lot shorter period of time than I thought I would. I was able to snag a couple buildings off of the OGR forum that were used, so that helped as well. And I moved my Morrison's door factory over here. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. I hope that you've enjoyed the video. I went through some of the process and how I've done some things. Now the town does just end. There is no portal that goes through the mountain yet. There's always the possibility of doing that, so the road looks like it continues, because right now it's just kind of like a dead-end town, which is kind of odd. But scenically, for photos and videos as trains are passing by, I think it's going to look really, really good. And so you have to stand by and wait a little bit to see what that might look like here in the next live stream or update that we're going to do. But I hope that you enjoyed this. Now the challenge is building that underground storage. I've got a couple sections of track set up already down there. I'm working on getting some things ordered in. So that's going to be a big process, but this was a lot of fun. I really think this is an improvement from what it was before. And the only thing that I still need to do is some road striping. I need some semi trucks, maybe some old K-line haulers or something like that for Morrison's Door Factory would look really nice. And then just some more figures and things like that for downtown. But I'm really happy with how this turned out. So leave me a comment below. What are your thoughts? If you're not subscribed to my channel, I really appreciate it if you join us along for the ride here on Chris's Trains and Things. Hit that subscribe button, like the video, share it out on social media. I hope this helped guide you in your process. And if you're working on this maybe 5 years from when this was posted, leave me a comment, shoot me a message. My email is in the About section of my channel. Happy to help you out so you can grow your layout and your collection. and you know, it'll make your life easier. That's the goal here. That's why I make videos that are like this. So thanks for tuning into part 2. Part 3 will be out at some point. I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm waiting for switches and track from Ross to come in, so could be a couple weeks, could be a couple months from now. But thank you so much. I'm glad this is done. Now I can get my inner loop working again, and we can start doing some live streams because I don't have to hide this from everybody. So thanks again, everybody. I'm Chris. I really appreciate all of you. Have an awesome day.